more enforcement measures and did call for the opening stages of a guest worker program. When they got to the demonstration, there was a video of Obama speaking to them, and he did not even support the Gutierrez bill, but he supported the Schumer bill, which was far more extreme and draconian. Although nonetheless, that was a significant demonstration because it was once again a flexing of the power of the masses. The entire time, the raids were placed in contrast to comprehensive immigration reform. The raids being the bad thing, the comprehensive immigration reform being the solution. Why was it called comprehensive immigration reform? Why is it still called comprehensive immigration reform? Because if you want that guest worker program, and you don't want it to just be in remote rural farms, you want to have people employed in Walmart, in McDonald's, in garment districts and in factories who will not leave that job and not leave that workplace because they know if they do, they'll be deported right back to the country they came from with $10,000 or $5,000 in debt, then you have to have an enforcement apparatus that is everywhere. Immigration and Customs Enforcement is too meager an apparatus to do that on its own. So the Secure Communities Initiative and everything else that is like it is not a contradiction to the guest worker program. It is a necessary precondition. So that's why each one of these guest worker program bills included provisions for just this kind of thing. It included provisions for biometric IDs for the entire country, not even immigrants, the entire country. So you could be stopped anywhere and make sure you're not one of these guest workers who's escaping to get a better job somewhere else and become an undocumented worker. They wanted to make sure that you were going to stay in that system. Because they could not pass the package together, they decided to divide it up and to pass the repressive measures on the one hand incrementally in the hopes that they would get to the point. How am I doing on time? I've probably been talking forever, huh?
You're okay.
Okay. Huh?
It's all that interesting.
Okay. In the hopes that they could get to the point where there's enough of a repressive apparatus that a guest worker program could be passed maybe on its own. And this was spelled out. I'm sorry, I wrote this down and I realized I can just say it, but so now you gotta bear with me for a sec so I find this quote. But you know, the Heritage Foundation laid it out very clearly in 2007. Okay, here we go. They published a strategy document that concluded that what they considered to be one of the guest, I forget which bill this was, but it was one of the various guest worker bills. They considered their most desirable aspects can be passed incrementally. They state, Congress should ensure the enforcement of laws already on the books, such as the Real ID Act and the Secure Fence Act. In other words, continue the process of border militarization, workplace raids, and home invasions. The authors go on to propose that Congress stage public hearings across the country, as it did last summer, to promote and capitalize on the ravings of the nativist fringe to ban bilingual education, and cut off immigrants' access to social services and improve the networking between federal agents, local police, and employers. Interestingly, a guest worker program also factors into their plans. Together, the paper concludes these elements, along with the general rejection of amnesty, offer a real possibility for strengthening national security and replacing, over time, an undocumented labor force with temporary workers and new legal immigrants. Now, this is an interesting language they use right here. Now, first of all, it's a mistake for them to throw out the possibility of a legal path to citizenship. But let's back up for a sec. They talk about these town meetings. Well, this happened here in Connecticut. In this period, under before the Secure Communities were passed and everything else, we had the growth of the 287G programs. 287G was a provision under a law passed in 1996 by Bill Clinton, which allows basically what Secure Communities allows, plus a few other things, including literally deputizing local police officers as immigration agents. So it's like the more extreme version of secure communities. But 287G could only be passed if a city council and a mayor wanted to pass it. So you had the extreme right-wing mayor of Danbury, Mayor Boughton, pass 287G. Now, when he attempted to do this, he was first met with only about 25 people picketing outside his the city hall. And there was a good reason for this, because he had maintained a campaign of repressing immigrants in that community for the last 2 years, including consistent raids using the local police, harassing activists who were organizing meetings and demonstrations and rallies. But then the vote was delayed, and all of a sudden the community went into action, particularly the Brazilian community, which hadn't done much of anything before. And we had meetings all over the place. One was about 1,000 people, packed like sardines in the Brazilian Catholic Community Center, spilling out into the street, into the room before, and it culminated in a mass demonstration of 8,000 people in a town of 80,000. It was the largest demonstration in Danbury since the 1915 Hatters Strike, and it was probably even larger than every single demonstration that took place in Connecticut on May 1st, 2006, possibly even combined. Now, there were all kinds of discussions going on at this time, because like every one of the other upsurges that happened before this, people start talking about all kinds of things they never considered before. For instance, a rapid response network to oppose the 287G program and the raids. So instead of just having one demonstration, anytime any immigrant is harassed or arrested or deported by the police, there would be a press conference announcing a mass demonstration and calling in allies and legal support from all over the region and the country, which everyone anticipated would lead to boycotts and strikes, as were already happening at that time and as obviously had happened before. And there was a plan to pull this into action. But again, there was a void of leadership, and it didn't quite go that way. In fact, the leadership in the town ended up meeting with the mayor. The bill was passed. The 287G program was passed. The Democrats voted for it themselves by 5-2. Chris Murphy said, well, each town should decide on their own whether they want a formal relationship with ICE or an informal one, but everybody's got to have a relationship with federal agents these days now, so they got to work something out. And all the Democrats in the town pretty much followed his lead. The mayor met with the leadership and said, hey, this is not what it looks like. This is not declaring open war on all immigrants. This is just to go after the worst criminals. This is a guy who used his own police force